Alright, so I'm not sure what day of the build we're on. We've been, skipping days because we have other stuff to do, and then we come back to it, but we're not very far along now. But it's time to separate the new engine and transmission so we can get the new engine put in the truck. So that's what we're going to do now. Go ahead and get these things separated, get the engine set in with the new mounts and everything, and yeah, just see how it all fits and what we got to do from there. Look how clean those are. I mean, you can definitely see that only 8 miles have been done. Alright, so we got everything loose now. Here's the direct injection system. If you guys hadn't seen that before, this is basically the main difference between the LS and LT engines. This is the high pressure fuel pump right here. It's run off of the cam lobe. And then these are the direct injectors right here. So we're going to go ahead and separate the transmission from the engine now. It's all loose, ready to go.
Hopefully the engine doesn't fall off forward.
I'll give it a little hold.
I
hope it doesn't break. Yep, I think we're good. Alright, so while we're waiting on all the suspension parts and everything to get here, we're going to go ahead and swap the old motor mounts out because the new motor mounts, all the stuff from Dirty Dago kind of mounts to those, and they're a little shot, so we want to replace them. I want to show you guys here where you unbolt them. So you can see right up in there, that's the bottom to get around to the motor mount here on the top. So it's kind of a pain to get to these bolts, but we got in and we loosened them up already. So now we can just get ready to pull these off and replace them with new. We're just going to use factory GM ones, at least for now, because we know they're pretty quality compared to a lot of the aftermarket stuff. So we want to go ahead and get these swapped out.
You see this guy? I've only used this like 3 times in my life. It's a 15mm swivel with a 1/4 inch drive, but it worked perfect for getting up inside the A-arm little access hole. Then you could kind of get it at that special angle that it needs. Then the top you just ratchet loose. If you have to do this with the engine in, it's such a pain, but this only took me like 5 minutes to get all of these loose, which is really convenient actually. So this is the time to actually replace your frame mounts if yours are cracked and worn out like ours are. This is probably not necessary. I mean, they don't look terribly bad, but I noticed when we had the old motor in it, it was sagging quite a bit, more than normal. So we thought we'd just put some new ones in while we're here. So we're going from a 5.7 to a 5.3. We're losing displacement.
We're going to gain a lot of bald eagles, though. That's all we need. You guys see we got a lot of craziness up here. That's a language Potak understands and speaks fluently.
I wish I didn't
leave all that to him.
I wish I didn't know that, because it's such a pain to do wiring. It's not hard, it's just involved, and you have to be in the right mindset the entire time, and you have to keep everything in order. You can't just go in there and cut wires here and there, and then you have to find out later, oh, I have to put these wires back. So it's just kind of one of those things you have to kind of have a filing system in your head of, hey, this is what I'm working on, this is where this needs to go, this is where this wire needs to go. And it's quite involved. It would probably be easier to take a harness from one of the retrofit companies and just kind of slap it in there, but we have this harness, so we figure we'll just kind of make it work and see if we could get it to work. If not, we'll have to have a backup plan, and hopefully we could buy a harness. For our engine dyno testing, we actually took a truck harness and sent it to SpearTech, and they made our harness work for our engine dyno testing. So we run that with the L83 cam testing that we've done, the LT1 cam testing that we've done. We've had that thing for 5 years since the LT Gen 5 stuff has come out, and it works on the dyno. So hopefully we can make this one work in the truck.
So we had to lock Potak in the shop the other night. He was just in the zone wiring this bad boy, and he said, "Leave me alone." So we left him alone, came back the next morning. He had fallen asleep here on the floor. I'm just kidding. He went home later on that night, but he got a lot of the wiring done, a lot of it taken care of. He was in that zone, so.
An hour Wednesday, an hour Thursday after work, just when everybody's out of here, nobody's asking me questions, and it kind of lets you focus on things a little bit better when the phones are off and none of the sales guys are here asking you, what pushrod length goes with this, what pushrod length goes with that, or compression questions, the normal day-to-day questions we get non-stop. So it just helps to not be bothered with stuff that doesn't pertain to what you're working on. It helps a lot, actually.
All right, so I think now we're gonna go ahead and pull this old radiator out, see if we can get the new one to fit up in here, or probably just leave it out of the way while we put the new engine in. But those mounts should be in real quick. We'll get them in and get that new engine set in here with all that new Dirty Dingo stuff. You guys saw that stuff's great. We want to get it in here quickly. It looks like it could use a good pressure washing, so we may go ahead and take care of that as well.
The radiator will be a little bit different mounts. This one has like a U-shaped mount, where you can kind of see the top one on both sides, that down below and up top. The new one will have round rubber bushings on the bottom, and then it has a bolt on the top. So we might be able to hole saw the bottom mounts in and make those work with the factory isolators, but the top, it may take some spacers and maybe putting a rib nut in the core support to make it work, if it even fits. We'll pull this one out and see if it fits first and kind of go from there. It'd be nice if it fits because it has those nice electric fans on it. And we could probably retrofit some electric fans to this, but if the factory stuff works from the L83 truck, might as well use it. Be easier.
All right, let's dig into it and get this puppy out.
Oh, nice rust color.
I was going to recycle that and use that in one of my cars, but it looks like we don't have very much.
And it's probably not the best idea.
All right, I'm going to take this old radiator out. And see if I can not spill any more.
Oh man, you're gonna disrupt the bird's nest.
There's the makings of a bird's nest right there. It's a do-it-yourself bird nest.
It's gonna fall on the floor. Make more of a cleanup. More pine needles. Yeah, we definitely have to get the pressure washer out in here.
Back. So the course,
Wow.
like I said, we're really close.
Look at that. They're like the damn near the
The
same
height
size.
and the width are almost identical.
That is crazy. Yeah,
So
you
the
guys
one
can
thing
see
that I'm
this one's a little
seeing-
thicker.
The one thing that I'm seeing is the old one has a radiator cap, so we're going to have to add a surge tank to the cooling system if we do use this. But look how nice this one is.
I know, it would be
As
nice
far
to put
as
all this into place.
function-wise and appearance, it should be a nicer setup. This one has the oil cooler for the transmission stuff. And I saw somebody mention that we should bypass that. We'll probably run the factory tranny lines for now and then add an auxiliary cooler when we change to an aftermarket torque converter. But I like running these because these are a little bit more efficient than the air to oil ones. So basically this would be the pre-cooler, and then it would go through the auxiliary cooler for the transmission, then back to the transmission. That's a better way from what I've seen as far as cooling the transmission fluid down.
So would you say that our oil going through the transmission would be ice cold, or?
No. It would be,
Lukewarm.
it'll probably be somewhere between the 180 to 200 range running the factory stuff. And maybe when we do the torque converter and an auxiliary cooler, it would be good to be in the same range. With the stock converter, it doesn't really, unless you're pulling a boat or something, it really doesn't heat up that much. Below 200 degrees is kind of ideal.
So you guys can see in 20 years, the radiator design has not really changed a whole lot.
Not a whole lot. Maybe a little bit more efficient. The fans are definitely some baller fans. These probably move a lot of air, and these are actually speed controlled by the ECM. So you run a big power and ground wire to each one of these, and that's not what turns them on. The computer actually is pulse widthing these, so it'll have a speed controller built in. Whether it needs 60%, 100%, whatever it needs. When the AC comes on, it's going to turn on the fans. When the engine starts warming up, it's going to start ramping up the fan speed. It's really ideal if we could run this.
Give you a hand there.
Okay. It's hitting.
See the AC lines over here.
It's hitting our charcoal canister for one, which I talked about removing. And on the new trucks, the condenser slides in on the front, so we might have to trim these off just to kind of make some room. And we'll just reuse a factory truck condenser from the OBS truck. But I might be able to, if I could get the radiator, you know, let's just unbolt the fans and then we'll try again. That's easy enough.
All right, and they're off.
Magic.
So now,
Let's see it. Man, that thing's light with no fans. So it'll take some work, but I think those might go in. It's hitting the washer fluid reservoir now. It's a little bit more involved to take off, but overall the dimensions, I think we might.
it's so close it doesn't look like it's going to be very difficult. to
No,
get
I
this
don't
in.
think
We'll
it's
just have to move
difficult.
A
I
couple
mean, you
things.
know, if this was like another half a foot wider, we'd definitely have problems, but it's so close where I think we could make it work relatively easy. The mounting will be a little bit tricky, and there may be a chance that we could run the stock mount. Like I said, the stock one uses like a little U-clamp like this, and maybe this would work instead of the new truck, the L83 mount. Maybe we could just reuse the stock ones instead. It's close enough to where it might just work.
It does look really close.
But for now,
We might be able to get this past.
whoa, look at that. Did it cut your hand?
No, it crushed my thumb a little bit, but it's all good.
Well, luckily those grow back. I actually think we could make this work. It'd be really good if we can. And like I was
We
saying,
might just have to trim some of this stuff off, like you said. Do you have that mount just with this? Well,
yeah, this mount right here.
I can't quite get this plastic over the.
So this one goes on this side. So I actually think
It totally looks like it's probably
it's
gonna
pretty close. It might work without us
You guys
even
can see if
breaking
this
a
wasn't
sweat.
here, it looks like this would easily go the distance it needs to bolt up.
So the things we would have to make are the round mounts. We'll have to definitely modify somehow to get the isolators in the bottom. But if this turns out to be in the same spot, we could just mount that real easy.
That's cool, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's real promising. I like that.
We're gonna clean this engine bay up as much as we can, as far as pulling out like the battery cable, removing some of these bolts, that stuff, get everything out of the way, and then we're gonna take it out, roll the truck out of here, pressure wash the whole engine bay, get it really cleaned up, and then from there we're just gonna let it dry and decide if we're just gonna go ahead and paint it. I think we're gonna paint a few things, just quick rattle can stuff, just to make it look good on the frame and everything where it's looking rusty. And just get it cleaned up and looking as good as we can before we start doing all the work to get all this stuff put back in. We want to keep this truck as clean as possible. I mean, the whole thing's clean inside and out, so why not just clean up this little bit right here while we're already, this far in.
And really, the inner fenders are pretty clean. This side's covered up. This side will have an air box right here.
Yeah, and it's really clean. I think especially after this is all pressure washed, you guys can see how clean that's coming out right there. So
It's just the frame that's kind of ugly and an eyesore right now. So if we could just clean that up a little bit, I think it goes a long ways. And stuff like the control arms, I'm not too worried about, because we're going to try to replace those anyway whenever we get that far into it. The shocks, I think, are from the lowering kit, and I think we're talking about replacing that stuff anyway.
All right, so the time has come. We're gonna go ahead and get it off the lift, get it on a trailer, and we're gonna take it to the car wash, pressure wash it all out. Well, it's hot out here, but we got the truck loaded, ready to take to the car wash, get all cleaned up. You know, we got to get this engine bay sparkling as good as the paint outside. So you can see the firewall looks pretty nice, actually, just dusty, but all this down here, it needs to be cleaned up. So let's get it there, get it pressure washed, and get it back here at the shop so we can do the install. Well, we made it to the car wash, and they don't have a card reader there, and they don't give any change. We only got a 20, so we're gonna head in here to Tractor Supply. Oh, maybe pick up a bike while we're here as well, and get some change and probably a couple of drinks. Alright, so just finished up cleaning the engine bay, but getting dirty myself. Got it all over me, of course, the pressure washer throwing it everywhere, but take a look under the hood, or where the hood should be. Oh yeah, looking clean. This stuff still isn't perfect, but we want to, you know, get it cleaned up enough to where we can throw a quick coat of paint on it or something, you know, kind of just a rust inhibitor or something like that. But you know, other than that, it's looking pretty good under there. I'm really happy with how it came out. The firewall just looks incredible. I mean, you can tell there's hardly any scratches or anything on it at all. This truck is going to be looking real clean, guys. It's going to be real nice, real clean. We got it back here at the shop. She's looking clean under the hood. It might have splashed up some, you know, some water and stuff on the paint. It's not as clean as it was exterior wise, but under the hood where it counts is cleaned up. So we got it back in the bay now. Let's get to work on it. Oh yeah, it's looking much cleaner. I mean, all this is rusty as heck, but there's no grease on it. You can see where the engine mounts were. It's looking pretty clean, ready to, you know, maybe paint up and install the new engine.
Let's paint it.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Seth's Paint Shop. So today we are going to go ahead and paint under the hood of the OBS. Just clean up some of this area. You can see I've already been at it. Some high quality work here. So, you know, I got the safety glasses, I got the tape, and I got the paint gun, you know, here. So no compressed air required for this sweet paint gun. So we're gonna get at it here, get it all taped off, get it cleaned up a little bit, and paint it. So yeah, check it out. Alright, so just finished up the first coat. It's looking pretty good. So it's still dry and you can see it's wet in spots. Of course, we're going to do another coat. It didn't quite cover it all. The control arms we're not so worried about because we're going to replace them. So I'm not, you know, too worried about getting those. I want to get the mounts here, everything else that is going to stay. It's looking pretty good after one coat. I mean, it was real rusty before, so anything's going to look better than that. One coat down, one more to go. Alright, so I finished up the second coat, and now let's go check it out outside and let it dry a little bit. Should be looking good. A little breeze out here, but I dried it up quick. Oh yeah, it looks much better. Much better than the rust. So you got it looking like this now instead of like this rusty area. So we're replacing that, don't worry about it. It's gonna be looking good. Time to get it back in here.